Welcome to 1+1. I am Courtney Act. Gamilaroi musician Mitch Tambo has shared the stage with the likes of John Farnham and Olivia Newton-John and brought his language into living rooms around the country on Australia's Got Talent. It's his passion for music and culture and lifting up young people that I want to talk to him about today.
Are you going to kick it or am I kicking it?
I'll kick it.
You're going to kick it?
Yeah. 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah. Giru ganunga 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 giru ganunga down gouda.
Everybody breathe and everybody bleeds. Absolutely everybody, yeah. Mitch Tambo, welcome to 1+1.
Yama yama, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. We both got our sort of big break in a similar way, singing on reality television. What was the impetus for you? Because you were already an established artist before Australia's Got Talent. What was the thing that made you want to take your work to such a public forum like that?
I think for me, I was at a point in my career or journey where I just was like, you know what, this year, it's time to grow, it's time to break through fear. And what better way to do that than to jump on, you know, AGT in front of a massive crowd. It's got a worldwide reach and just go for it. But the purpose that was really driving it was I just really wanted to get out there and just show the world that, you know, our culture, our Gamilaroi language, it's still here, it's alive, you know, we have survived. And, you know, just represent my ancestors that have gone before me and just put it out there and see what happens.
What was that experience like and the aftermath of that?
Well, the aftermath was amazing. I had some incredible support, you know, obviously from around the nation and world. I had some of my songs chart #1 around the globe and #2 in the UK and get into some American charts, which was just phenomenal, and had like people reach out from all over asking if they could get certain words of mine in their tattoo sleeves and just sharing all their stories with me, fighting through cancer and just a whole number of things that was absolutely incredible. But I think the harshest reality was not being ready for the online negatives too, you know. I think you can prepare yourself mentally as much as possible. When it actually happens, it's a whole new ball game, you know. So I had to quickly sort of dive within and come up with strategies of how I was going to navigate through that and push through, and also realise that this is how it is, you know. I'm sure you've probably had an abundance of it. It's what happens when you put yourself out on a platform. You're going to have a whole bunch of good and not so good, you know. I
was lucky when I was on Australian Idol, the internet didn't really exist yet.
Yeah.
So there was certainly no comments section, which was handy. Were you able to, after that sort of negative comment sort of takes precedent in your mind, are you able to step back and feel the love?
Yeah, 100%. Like through that journey, what I did realise is I've got such a tight support network and such a strong community that are really with me and riding with me, you know, and I take courage of that, and also it really made me reflect on why I decided to do what I do, you know, from the age of like 15 to now, you know, what really drives me to be me and what has really made me want to step out and take this leap. So I tend to always reflect on that, and that helps me get through as well. And just, you know, we're all going to cop it. You know, we're in this online world where you're going to get it. You know, I've got a traditional headdress on my head. There's people out there that just are uneducated and really don't care, and they're going to hammer me for it. You know, I don't look like the stereotypical blackfella, so to speak. So I knew all this when I stepped out, but you can't prepare yourself for how you're going to handle it. And for me, I'm blessed that I've got a great support network, and that for the most part, I knew what I was in for. And when it did start to impact me, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go back home, I'm going to go out bush for a week, I'm going to top up, and I'm going to come back even better.
Before AGT, had you tried at making it happen through the commercial route?
No, not at all. I think music for me has been really organic and spontaneous, and in a lot of ways, I was never really meant to end up here. But maybe I was, I think we're all being guided in some way, but I didn't really anticipate that I'd pick up a microphone and start singing and writing my own songs. I guess that's what I'm saying. So, yeah, it's just kind of happened really organically, and then taking the step with AGT was, I guess, in a way, getting a bit more serious about it and wanting to explore that avenue.
Because there's something, I think, really powerful about reality television as a format. I've lost more reality TV shows than most people. And as a member of the queer community, I never saw myself represented on television. It always felt like the people in charge weren't taking risks when it came to people like me. Yet there seems to be a lot more risks that they can take on reality television. Was that a conscious thought going into it, or is it just sort of like, I've got this stuff that I want to showcase to the world?
It's definitely a conscious thought, because growing up there's not that representation. I mean, you've got Yothu Indy and all these amazing artists that we all know of that are incredible, and like I grew up in Tamworth around Uncle Roger Knox, who's like an icon in his own right. But in terms of, that main stage, a representation where it's like, wow, that is me, I don't know if I really got that. And I was really purposeful in going out of, I want to just be me and represent that. And it was the first time that I hadn't really been fully painted up to a degree. I mean, a lot of my shows before that, I was at least 50% painted up. But with this, I was like, yeah, well, there you go, see. I was like, I want to be me and be reflective of that. And that is, inside in my spirit, I feel like I am that, black fella before colonisation. I feel that intense connection to my ancestors. I feel like I've been called to do what I do. I really do in my heart and spirit. But on the flip side, I'm also this brother boy that's grown up in a very forever changing Western contemporary world. So who I am is reflective of both of that. And that's when I stepped out in that big orange tracksuit with my headdress and the whole nine. I was like, well, that's who I am. And it's not just me also. There's heaps of us brothers and sisters out there that belong and are very strong culturally and also very passionate about, fashion and whatever it may be. So why not bring the two together, be respectful, but be reflective of who I am, and hopefully allow that to resonate not just with my own community, but with all mob from all walks of life, that you can just step out and be you and not have to forsake any element of you. You should be able to walk down the street and rock your burqa and not feel any which way about that, and I just wanted to play my part in, the massive jigsaw puzzle, so.
I love that you visually represent your culture as well. There's lots of First Nations artists, but you've got your headdress and your paint on. Why is that visual representation so important?
Well, first and foremost, it's who I am. I am a traditional fella, in terms of dance, culture, just everything. I live and breathe culture, and I didn't want to forsake that in moving into the commercial space at all. I had to bring me into it. So it's only right that I rock it, So this is a traditional headdress. You got the Dinawan feathers, the emu feathers, red-tailed black cockatoo. The glue in the middle here is beeswax from the native bee. And obviously I've got my white ochre. And the feathers are representative of different stories, and I carry that with me.
I love that. And singing in language, where does that come into it? Is that something, I feel like young Indigenous kids across the country hearing you and seeing you and hearing you sing in language is such a powerful thing.
Yeah, it's funny because obviously I'm a fluent English speaker. I'm not fluent in my language, but I've only ever really sung in my language and never in English. I mean, people are probably like, oh, yes, you did. You were here at this party when we were 16 and, but it's like, no, I never... I never jumped on stages or anything singing in English. And in fact, that taunts me to this day. Like I freak out, So it was through AGT. It was the last, half an hour before getting on stage or the last rehearsal. And my team said to me, you don't have to do this. You don't have to sing the breakdown. And I was like, well, this is what I've come to do. So in You're the Voice, I'm going to just do it. I'm just going to sing for the first time in English and just see what happens,
We're not gonna sit in silence. We're not gonna live with fear. Whoa, whoa. You make the way out again.
The language component, I feel like it's me. I feel like when all of us connect with our mother tongue, something supernatural happens. There's an amazing connection that happens. And for me, I've only ever wanted to sing in my language, and that comes from just growing up and being immersed in culture and singing traditional songs. And I think it just got to a time in my career where it was like, well, I want to not just do an album that's dig and instrumentals. I want to do something that's reflective of me, and I want to tell my own contemporary story. So I decided to start singing in my language and telling my own stories.
And when it comes to writing those stories, what's that process like? Do you write with other writers who speak Gamilaroi?
I work with Aunt Bernadette Duncan, who's out in Bogabilla, and yeah, she's a phenomenal woman. You know, she's at the forefront of, you know, keeping language alive, and so we've formed this amazing, you know, team, and we just go back and forward, and she does a lot of the translations of my songs and helps me with language and has taught me so much. So
I only speak English. I know some choice phrases in other languages, but I'm always fascinated about the translation for a song like "You're the Voice," where you were translating from English into language. How literal or how challenging is it to get the lyrics and the beats and the syntax of it correct?
Courtney, can I just tell you that it is so hard.
I bet.
It's so hard. It's so extremely hard. And it's hard for a number of reasons. And the first reason is because it's hard. The second reason is it's because you don't want to disrespect your own language.
Yeah.
The third reason is you don't want to disrespect the other song either. And it's not like English and language has been made to just fit together like a perfect puzzle.
Yeah.
So it's about keeping the story and the integrity of it and just working and working and working until you've got a translation that is like as good as it can get.
Yeah, right.
And it's such a process, because in our language, you know, you could say one word, but it means a certain thing, and you say that word again with a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of an inflection, and it could mean a completely different thing. So it's like you go back, you go forward, you go back, you go forward, and then you step on the stage and hope for the best.
Hope for the best.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. I want to talk about growing up in Tamworth and your mum, and you've spoken about how she felt the need to protect you.
Yeah, I think that's all mothers, you know, plight, duty, however you want to look at it, is to protect, isn't it? But certainly, you know, with my journey with my mum, 18 months old, single mother, from my knowledge, sort of, you know, I guess mid-20s. And yeah, so we moved to Tamworth and we ended up, you know, in Housing Commission. I've got nothing against Housing Commission. I think, you know, Housing Commission provides so many amazing opportunities and places for people to lay their head where they never could, and they certainly did for us. So it's not to bag out Housing Commission, it's just that through that experience, it got pretty hectic at times, you know. And I guess when we talk about protection, I put an article out recently about our time there and, you know, mum having a pet cat and that cat being stolen by some men, and they get up on their roof next door all night, meowing drunk and just tormenting her, you know. And I remember being this kid waking up, having dreams and going, "Mum, they're coming to get you, they're coming to get you," I'm crying. And she'd get up with a crowbar and be walking up and down the house, checking windows and doors, and it's pretty full on, you know. And I look back and I'm like, wow, I thought I was just having nightmares, but, you know, it's actually a bit of trauma, isn't it? Because, you know, you're in this whirlwind, you know, for a moment. But, you know, we got out of it and lived with my nan and pop for quite a while, and then my mum went to uni, put herself through uni, become a high school teacher. She just created a beautiful template for me to walk upon, you know, just ethics and morals and just the basic stuff, you know. You say you're going to do something, follow it through, and just all that kind of thing. But now, you know, she's got her own house, got a beautiful husband. Shout out to Gray's, an awesome stepdad, and she's just powering along, so it's great.
You mentioned earlier the age 15. What was it that happened at 15 that began you in this career?
I think 15, for most teenagers, is a pretty pivotal period of time. And it was through that period of time for me where I just really started to get hungry for culture and really hungry to just understand who I am and, you know, really get a better grasp of my identity. And, you know, Mum just really got around me and really pushed me in that path. And I think that she could identify really quickly that getting on this path and immersing myself in my culture and getting that deeper understanding of who I am would help me make better informed decisions, you know, moving forward. That if someone was like, you know, come under the stormwater drains and let's go smoke a couple of cones or something like that, that I'd be like, well, no, that's not who we are. You know, I come from the oldest living continual culture on the planet, you know, we don't do that. And I feel like I really believe in that to this day too, for all young people out there. When you've got a better understanding of who you are and what you are truly connected to, and when you're feeling lost and alone, you can look up into the stars and see your stories, you know, there's something really beautiful in that. And I feel like that transcends to all people from all walks of life and culture. You know, if you have a better understanding of who you are and where you come from and what you're truly connected to, I feel like it just stands you upright spiritually.
That's got to be the key to helping young First Nations kids in Australia feel connected and you know, I know that there can be such a feeling of being disenfranchised by, you know, the systems and the structures, and it does seem that putting a focus on culture can really ground someone and connect someone. And it's so interesting, you know, hearing you talk about finding that path at 15. How can we encourage more people to find that path, and what sort of systems are in place or can be in place to just share culture with, you know, young First Nations kids and also non-First Nations kids to develop that appreciation?
Totally. It's funny you say that. I've actually got my own little, I don't know if it's a business, but it's called Wallumbah, and we go out into schools. We work with kids in foster care, juvenile justice, prisons, do staff development, and it's all geared towards, you know, sharing culture and sharing my culture. And through that experience, you know, allowing us to open up that conversation with youth about, you know, what is it? What foods do you eat? What language do you speak? And allow, in that brief period of time, participants from all walks of life to engage with their own sense of self. But it's purely through the celebration of our culture and telling the true history of us, you know, First Nations mob. There's so many of us out there now that are on a path of healing and healing through culture, and I think that's powerful.
It's so fascinating to hear about your journey, because I think about growing up as a young queer person, and I know how validating and how important it's been to me to hear about people who came before me. And a lot of it for me in the early days was oral history in dressing rooms with like older drag queens and queer people just having a yarn about like, Dal, I remember back, you know, in the AIDS crisis in the 80s and sharing those stories. And you're just like, why don't I see this? Why aren't these stories being told? And thankfully, I think for First Nations people and for queer people, there is more visibility now. And I suppose from a First Nations context, truth-telling is something that's really important as well.
We've got to tell the truth. You know, we don't have to sit there and point the finger and condemn one another and get into a massive war of words, but we certainly need to tell the truth, and we need to tell the truth with the whole intent and purpose being around healing. You know, we need to heal. We need to heal. You know, you want to eradicate and break down a culture quickly and dismantle it. You rob the people the opportunity to speak language. You know, we've had language, kids stolen, all these things. You know, the list goes on, massacres to dismantle our culture, but we are here, we have survived, and now it's time for us to get back to our culture the best we can and heal through it and celebrate it and share it. But we need to heal, and to heal, we have to tell the truth. And let's tell it, you know, in all of its horrificness and in all the beautiful things too. And that is, you know, the stolen generations, the genocide. Let's tell the truth. You know, the truth is genocide has never stopped. You know, our kids are still killing themselves. Our kids are being removed at alarming rates. You know, the high levels of incarceration, you know, the domestic violence, the transgenerational trauma. You know, people don't think transgenerational trauma exists. It exists. You know, it's been proven that it can be passed on in the DNA. You know, and I say all these statistics and I say all this not to put heaviness on you or to anyone that may be viewing, but to shed light that this stuff is here and it's happened, and we need to talk about it so we can keep educating others. So the more we get educated, we can have more momentum, and through that we can break these cycles.
I'm interested to know from your standpoint, how can people be better allies, I guess?
Just listening.
Yeah.
You know, the reality is, you know, I've done many workshops and shows, and the thing that I find triggers people the most is when you get into the conversation around the national apology. And as soon as you start to touch on that topic, you know, something happens in the room and you sort of almost count to 10 and you know it's coming, and it's well, I'm not sorry, I never did anything. And my response has always been, I'm not here to point the finger at you, but through this conversation, I hope that you walk away with a greater capacity and some empathy for our story. You know, I feel like maybe we've been conditioned as a society to switch off that human component when it comes to our story, or stories like that of other backgrounds or communities, where really what we need to be doing is growing capacity, and within that growing growing empathy for one another. You know, the ability to be able to sit and hear your story of your community, and then for me to be able to exchange that with you. And I'm sure we'd walk away going, wow, we've got way more in common than not. What we need to do is get back to relationship and communication, and that only comes through sitting and having a real open, honest conversation and dropping our guard for a mere few moments.
That's why I love, you know, moments like this where we get to have these conversations, and hopefully people from my audience and people from your audience will come and watch, and they'll cross-pollinate and listen and learn something and foster that sense of empathy.
For sure. I mean, I feel like we're definitely having growing pains.
Yeah.
We are. We're moving forward in different areas, but our statistics are still, they're crazy, you know. But hopefully through these little wins, we're just going to keep building and we're going to create something beautiful.
Mum's a teacher and you're a trained social worker. How did you get into that?
Social worker, I am. I went to university. To all the teachers out there that doubted me, we did it. But it's a funny story, really, because at school, if I'm honest, I did nothing. I remember being in year 12 and having teachers come up to me and be like, Mitch, like, why are you still here? I had this whacked out vision that I was going to university. Like, what are you going to do after school? I'm going to go to uni. How are you going to go to uni if you do nothing? Well, I'm going to go there. You don't have to worry about that, all right? Just real adolescent. And as soon as school finished for me, I rang up this pre-programs course, Nuragili, out of UNSW. They offered a 4-week bridging program to university. And I rang them and they're like, mate, we've seen your school report. Like, sort of don't know why you're ringing. Like, you're not coming to university. And I rang them every day for like a week. And it got to the end of the week and they said to me, look, we get it. You're not going to leave us alone. We're going to a meeting about you this afternoon. And they rang me back and I'm like, you're in. 4 weeks, don't let us down, please. So I went to Sydney and I remember I was there for like 24 hours. They put us in a hotel for the first couple of days because of accommodation issues or something. And the head of the faculty, she literally come to the hotel door and she knocked on the door and it was me and this other brother. And she just come the day before we started and she said, look, I'm putting my neck out here for you two. If you let me down or you step out of line one bit, you're out of here. Do you understand? Don't make me look like a fool. Wow. And in that moment, my stomach just dropped and fell through the floor.
Mine did just then.
Yeah, like it was full on. She was this Auntie Sue, if you're out there, I'll never forget you. And while everyone went and like had fun with it, I'd just become this like studious student. I rocked up to class straight away in the first day, identified completely with social work. I was like, wow, like all of us mob, we're like social workers. This is what we do. And I just fell in love with it. And at the end of the 4 weeks, I topped the faculty and I quickly just got super passionate about it. I am today, you know, I love youth. I love getting around people and supporting people and being a part of someone's journey or lending an ear. And that's where Wollumbar stems from, is because, you know, as soon as AGT happened and it was like singing, I was like, no, I don't want this to stop. You know, I was still working with kids and youth and all that kind of thing. It tops my cup up. You know, when I walk away from a workshop or working with young people, I'm like, this is what I'm meant to do, you know? And I feel that way on stage, but there's something different about working with the next generation and be able to walk away from that like, you know, I was that kid. You know, we did a camp recently. I did it with my wife, Leah, and she was like, are you nervous? And I was like in front of like 20 kids. I'm like, I'm nervous today because it really means something to me. You know, I remember being that young fella on that carpet, you know, not knowing what I'm hungry for and not having someone there to necessarily feed that. So to be in a position to go and talk and share my journey and the hope to reach out to just one kid just inspires me, you know.
Tell me about performing for 75,000 people at the Firefight Australia concert and singing this song that you'd done on AGT with the voice, John Farnham.
Yeah, it was definitely out of this world.
This is Mitch Tambo, folks.
Yeah, it's pretty insane when you get out there and you can't absorb it. Like normally when you perform, you catch at least a couple of pairs of eyes, you know, and make that connection. But I just remember being out there like, I'm just getting swallowed up. Like, you know, it's full on. The thing for me that was probably the highlight was definitely being with Uncle John, Olivia Newton-John, in rehearsal, you know, a week or a few days before it. There's just something about being with two absolute icons, talking Grease, you know, you're the voice. There's something to be said about that, and to be in that room and to just feel like you belong just out of this realm. You know, and I don't mean it with disrespect, but they felt like grandparents, you know, the way that they just looked after me and were so encouraging. And there was like this moment we were midway through rehearsals or something, and John goes to Olivia, he's like, Livy, have you seen his performance? She's like, no, and he's like, Chong, put it up. So we're midway through and they put my version up and I'm just like cringe city because I'm like, no, like this could go wrong. And then after it, at the end, John just gave me a big hug and he was like, you know, this isn't my song anymore, it's ours, and I can't thank you enough for doing what you did with it. And I just walked away from it like, wow, like what incredible human beings, just normal people, you know? And that will just be with me forever.
And when you're up there on stage, one of the beautiful things is that your wife, Leah, is one of your background singers. What's that like, sharing life with her and also getting to share the stage with her?
It's beautiful, you know, it's a real blessing. She's an incredible woman. She's a strong cultural woman. She's from West Papua. She's a proud Biaki woman. She understands culture, understands that beautiful underlying connection I have for my people, and she has that for her own too. So it's just beautiful, and to be able to travel together and be on this journey, it's just, it's magnificent.
And you've become stepdad to her 3 daughters.
Become a stepdad to 3 beautiful girls from, we've got 15, 12 and 5. So it's all happening.
Instant
I play
family
with
for you.
Barbies, I do it all,
Same.
you know? Yeah, well, it's a bit newer to me, but I'm getting all right at it. You know, I dress them pretty quick these days, can't complain. I'm surrounded by strong women left, right and centre, so it's really good. And, you know, Leah definitely has been with me through all the highs and lows, and she's just such a strong, empowering, encouraging person, you know, and to have her in my life, it's a beautiful thing, it really is.
Mitch, thank you so much for joining me. I truly hope that we just see the growth and the continuation of your art and your music and your message, not just around Australia, but around the world. And thank you so much for joining me today on 1+1.
Thanks for having me.